Hey YouTube, Matt here. Welcome back to the channel once again. In today's video, I'm going to go over one last time in this section how to construct prisms of varying face shapes in 1-point and 2-point perspective. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to start by drawing a horizon line using a ruler. I will use a ruler to draw the first prism just to show you what it can look like when you use a ruler. And afterwards, I'm going to draw by hand, simply to practice drawing straight lines. If you're an advanced artist, you can absolutely draw freehand because, as I always say, when you clean up, you're going to want to use ink to do so. So we've marked off our horizon line here and mark off 3 vanishing points. So again, I'm making this video as if you're following along because you're absolutely welcome to do so. I hope you get something out of this video as I demonstrate how to turn shapes into prisms. And we're going to get a little bit wild here with the shape, with the number of sides, edges on the shapes, just to show you that you can virtually build any structure out of a shape with multiple sides beyond the standard triangle, rectangle, square, circle. Okay, so we got VP1, vanishing point 1, vanishing point 2, vanishing point 3. So just to reiterate, 1-point perspective, you're looking at a single vanishing point, using it to recede all of the vertexes back to that single point on a shape. So let's draw, let's see, I'll use my ruler like I said. Draw basic. So I'm going to draw this shape to the left of this vanishing point, and we're going to build a 1-point perspective prism. So aiming for something akin to a square. I mean, I could measure this out and make it perfect, but for the sake of this video and to save some time, I'm just going to eyeball it. Okay, so each of these corners is a vertex, and you're going to want to take each of these vertices and recede them back to the vanishing point. Okay, and we'll go right through the object, go right through the face. And now you're going to decide how long you want this rectangle to be, or if it's going to be a square. So I drew this line as parallel as possible to the horizon line just for the sake of this demonstration here. So I mean, I can line it up and take it back as far as I decide. There's a rectangle. If I want it to be a square, I'll have to use my discretion and decide. Again, I'm determining based on its visual appearance. Is it, is it going to be pulled back this far? This looks pretty good as a square. And again, you're going to want this line to be parallel to this line because we are building prisms that look accurate. Okay, so then you can erase the construction lines. And again, if we wanted, so that's our cube. If we wanted this to be a rectangular prism rather, then we'd carry this line down and we'd fill in, we'd embolden these lines here so you can see. So if we went back to here, we'd have our rectangular prism. And if we stopped here, we'd have our cube. Okay, I'll draw that line just to show you how you can, again, you could carve away at the prisms you create. You can decide. You have the power to decide their size, their shape. Everything should be under your control as an artist. This is what gives you your edge as a creator. Knowing the technical rules and then deciding how you want to use them to manipulate what you are depicting on the page. This is art. This is how it's done. Perspective might seem extremely technical because it is. But perspective is essential even when building human figures within a composition. And when I get into anatomy, you're going to understand how essential it really is, how critical perspective is when it's applied to the human form. It's very critical. But for now, we're keeping things very simple. And I wanted to show you, so let's continue with, let's do another 1-point perspective prism, building it out of a triangle. Okay, so again, I'm not going to use my ruler just to save some time and practicing freehand straight lines. Okay. So as it turns out, both of these vertices line up directly with the vanishing point, relatively close to it. So I'm going to parallel. There is our triangular faced prism. And because it's above the horizon line, as I've noted in prior videos, you're going to see the bottom face, and it's going to be shadowed because if this is outside, the sun is above it, it's likely that this bottom face is going to be shadowed with no light touching it. And of course down here, because we're going to see the top of this face because it's beneath the horizon line. So we're going to see three sides. If you drew your, again, I'll show you two here. If you draw your face directly, like let's say the edge is above or below where the vanishing point is. So then each of these vertices, as they connect to the vanishing point here, building our prism, you can see you're only going to see two sides. If we cut it off here, you're only going to see two faces of the prism. And again, that would be shadowed because it's above the horizon line. Okay. And if you move it slightly over to the right or the left, then you're going to see three sides. Now, again, this triangular face prism here, we only see two sides because it's in such a position that each of these two vertices here line up almost perfectly with the vanishing point. So that just happened to be like that. Now, let's see if I draw it further away. Let's see on a different angle here. Let's see, make the face a little bit. Okay, now let's line these up. Okay. Now, again, you're only going to see two parallel. You're only going to see two sides, two faces, because this point, the vertex, it's behind the object. So you're not going to see this face right here. Looking through it, you're not going to see that face right there. It's only three sides. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 5 faces total, but only 3 of those faces are lengthy faces. And again, this one side here beneath it, if we're looking through it. Now again, if I throw some shadow on this just to show you, let's say the sun is over here somewhere and this side is completely shadowed. You're only going to see, again, you can see you're only going to see this face, and the other face is facing the sun. Of course, with a sphere, it doesn't matter where you place it, whether it's 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, even 4, 5, or 6 point perspective, you're not going to have to worry about adhering to or receding anything back to the vanishing points until you get into rendering it and applying light to its form, light and shadow. And that's something I'll get into when I get into shading the various prisms in 3D space. So let's jump into 2 point perspective now. And yeah, let's just do it. So I'll draw something akin to a rectangle. Again, starting with the face. Sorry, 2 point. Remember, you're not drawing the face. You're drawing a single edge. You're drawing a single edge where you want to build your shape. So again, recede these vertices back to both vanishing points. And then carry another line from the vanishing point back so they intersect, deciding how long you want each side of this prism to be. This is where the decision making comes in. If I pull it back here, it's going to be shorter. If I pull it back to here, it's going to be a bit longer. And again, you do the same thing on the other side. The real determining factor in building this prism using 2 point perspective is deciding where this edge, this corner, where you're going to see it and where you want it positioned. So you're going to start with that. If I'm going to look directly at the object, seeing it on its seeing it turn, not seeing it straight on like in one point. Then again, a good example is if you're standing at a street corner and you look across at the diagonal to the opposite corner, and if there happens to be a building there, you will see that corner of the building. You're now looking at that building in 2-point perspective. And again, let's carry so vanishing point 3 back. All right, and then using this as your guide for creating these next lines, making them parallel. And they're parallel in 2-point perspective, but you'll see in 3-point perspective, these edges, this edge, and this edge are going to recede down or up, depending on your third vanishing point where you place it. And that point is going to be off the horizon line, above or below it. I'm going to do the next video on 3-point perspective just to show you that, to carry that on. Getting to 3-point, and then I will get into using a light source to cast shadows. And then we'll start building some rooms out of perspective, some scenes, just to show you what we can actually do with this knowledge, how to create something cool with it. So definitely stay tuned with these videos if you are interested in knowing how to actually do something with these art skills, because you can do quite a bit, and it's very interesting. Making art is it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, especially once you understand the rules, and you'll learn how to kind of bend them and break them in ways that work. Because making art is about making it look right, making it look good. You can get away with a lot in art if you understand the rules. And again, you can even get away with drawing objects in perspective without getting so technical. I think this deters a lot of people from making art, especially drawing in perspective, because it's a lot of work. And again, you see me avoiding the ruler, not because I don't like using it. A ruler definitely has its place, but like I've said before, when I build elaborate drawings, I want to get the drawing down, and I'm capable of drawing straight lines, and I will do that without having to resort to the tool. And I use it only when I'm inking to put in those crisp, final, clean lines. Okay, so here's our two-point perspective rectangular prism. And yes, okay. I've demonstrated drawing cylinders. You can draw a cylinder. You could technically, let's find the center point here. And, I didn't carry this line back here. I didn't draw through it here. We should just do that just to show you. And yep, carry this down, parallel. And then this should line right up. Close, pretty close. I mean, the ellipse would, this is kind of awkward here, but the ellipse would fit within this. So you can see you've got, it's a little bit awkward here. But even the cylinder would become slightly warped within that 2-point perspective. It's looking a little bit awkward. But that is how you would build it in 2-point perspective. Let's see. These straight edges are causing it to look especially. Yeah, just erasing construction lines is obviously great, especially when you finish a piece in ink and you can erase the graphite underneath and you've got a really nice looking. Drawing this ellipse was a little bit tricky because it was placed within that, basically a rhombus, that rhombus face. But if you tilt it, you can see on its tilt, it's quite a nice looking. And again, now this is a good example of where you can use artist discretion to make the cylinder work. You see how I corrected it here? And it's looking much better than it was initially. And again, I'm freehanding everything, so it's not going to be perfect, but I just want to show you how it's meant to turn out. Okay, Now, here's something cool you can do. You can start manipulating these faces here. Like, we can draw through. Again, using a ruler, you do this to have these nice and clean and even. We can hollow out this prism here. Again, carry these vertices back to the vanishing point. Now this, you'd keep this line and you'd erase the other construction lines. And now we've created the illusion. This would carry back, of course. You've created the illusion now of a hollowed out prism. And it might be shadowed a little bit on the inside here. And then it would be especially darker in here, so you can see we've got a hollowed out prism. And again, let's see, you can draw as many edges on any kind of shape you want. It doesn't matter what it's going to look like. And using 1 point perspective, again, you carry all of these vertices back to the vanishing point, and you would just shave them off, carve this shape out essentially as far back as you choose to determine how thick or thin you want this shape to be. And again, parallel, 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 and yeah, that's, there you go. Erase your construction lines, and you have a multi-sided shape that has now been created to look three-dimensional. It's now become a prism. A prism has 3 dimensions: length, width, height around its faces. A shape just has 2 dimensions, length and width. But a 3D object, of course, has length, width, and height. So you can see how geometry comes into play when you're thinking about creating prisms. So at 2D, you've got length, width, and you've got height as your 3rd dimension, length, width. This is a cube here, so the length would be, or rather, sorry, it would be along the longest edge, of course. All right. This would be the width. Perfect. Okay. See, if I draw a cylinder, I just arbitrarily determined how narrow these ellipses should be. But remember, if you're going to draw it over the horizon line, then you're going to see, you're not going to see the top face or the bottom face. Both are hidden because one is planted on the ground here. And let's say you'd be standing close to it. However large this cylinder is, it's large enough, it's taller than you if you can't see the top face, obviously. And it's going to be planted on the ground, so again, you're obviously not going to see the bottom face. This might be like, what are those structures called? Like a silo on a farm. Again, so I just, I connected the edges of the ellipse here to a point in the center, and now you've built an object that appears like something we see in our everyday lives. Let's see. Let's practice more 2-point perspective prisms here. And like I said too, I'll show you this one more time. If you have 2 vanishing points, your object is being drawn close to the vanishing points, close up, and the vanishing points are close together. It's going to really cause a distorted appearance. Although it is correct, it's technically correct, it's just going to look a little bit awkward because it's so close and So again, parallel, parallel. You see, this is really kind of warped looking, but it is correct because these edges are receding to their appropriate vanishing points. So to create the most realistic depiction, unless you're going for that kind of fisheye lens effect, which you'd actually use 5 or 6 point perspective for, I'll demonstrate that in another video. That's a really cool depiction. But you're getting a sense of it because the vanishing points are so closer. It kind of looks like it, although you wouldn't approach a fisheye lens effect with only 2 vanishing points. Again, you'd have 5 or 6. 5 seems to work out nicely. 6 starts to get very crazy, but I'll show you that in another video. That'll be cool. But you can see now, I don't know if they're really, if this would be ever really seen by the human eye. You'd have to be looking through a piece of glass that alters perhaps the object you're looking at, but you're not going to see something like this in real life unless the object is actually built like this, where it has these extreme receding edges. Okay, let's get a little more creative here. Let's just go nuts with the 1 point. And draw right through the horizon line here. And then maybe have some cutouts here that we can use to show how this, let's use this vanishing point here, vanishing point 2. So these simple demonstrations, I mean, this is great practice for learning the very basics of perspective. And then, of course, if you look at a house, you might think it's very complicated to translate that onto, or build a house onto your page. Maybe I'll do a video building a house just to show you how much more you need to think about every object that goes into constructing the house. The windows, the frame, size proportion matters greatly. Because if you draw something too large, it's going to make everything around it look awkward. Like if the door is too large, the house is going to look too small. If the door is the smaller you make the door, the bigger the house is going to look. Everything in relation to each other. That's also very important when you're drawing. You need to be thinking about the way we see these objects in reality, and then translate that to your drawing. So I've decided that this object is going to be this thick. Or I mean, yeah, it's going to be this thick because all the faces are going to match it. And again, parallel, parallel. And we're going to take this. First, he's going to come back and parallel. Take these ones back. This one, it's hidden by this edge a little bit. And you're not going to see actually anything here. So that's all going to be hidden, shadowed. You're going to see that. And then this one. All right. And this one, of course, is going through the object, so you're not going to see that. And, you know, thinking about shadows, you'd see underneath this a little bit. This might be shadowed. And yeah, I cut it off here. That connects down there. Okay. Let's erase some of these construction lines. And now you can see how we have built this. That's part of the triangular prism there. So now we've applied perspective to this kind of awkward looking shape we've constructed. I'm going to presume the light source is somewhere up here. And that's how we're getting these shadows on these faces here like this. And again, there is a technical way to determine where shadows are going to be. And that's something I'm going to demonstrate in another video. So I just wanted to reiterate what you can do with shapes, their faces, and how you can turn them into prisms, no matter what the shape is, a triangle, a square, a rectangle, and how they're going to appear depending on their proximity to the vanishing points, and also the number of vanishing points you've got. In this case, we did 2-point perspective and 1-point perspective prisms. Let's draw another cylinder in 1-point perspective. I'm going to use this vanishing point here. So let's build the prism within this rectangular shape here. I'll mark it off here. Find your center. Just makes it easier to draw your ellipse, or circle in this case, because I center it. And then connect the edges. See, it's going to come within this. It's going to be situated within the prism because the circle face doesn't touch the corner. So you're going to go right to the edge where it does touch and erase all of your construction lines. And now you've got a half decent looking cylinder that's on its longer edge on the ground. And you can do the same thing doing it vertically. Yeah. So you would, let's say you draw a rectangle upright, vertices to the vanishing points. Decide how far back you want it to be. Center it off, and then of course carry these vertices down that we created. So about right here, center that off. And again, the ellipse, it comes off, it's awkward to draw. I always found this one tricky, especially I did this once in animation school for a lesson, and some of the cylinders came off very awkward looking, but this is the way to do it. And correct me if I'm wrong, perhaps there was another way, but I remember the exercise specifically having us, you have to eyeball it, and it's almost like an oval, like an egg shape. But as you'll see, because when you erase these construction lines, the edges will line up nicely, and now you have your cylinder situated according to 1-point perspective. And it doesn't look half bad because it's close to the vanishing point. So it's like it's pulling it, it's stretching it, warping it, you could say, in a sense, but it's warping it technically correctly. So these are things you have to be mindful of as well. Okay. All right. And I mean, yeah, 1-point, 2-point, you can get really creative here. Drawing houses is it's awesome. It's awesome because it's so fun just building up and deciding where you want to place adjacent structures, like a garage or a balcony, or building extensions onto the house. You can have it, building a castle out of perspective is pretty cool to do. This might be like, and let's stack some more shapes up here. Some more prisms on top of this prism. So you can see I'm cutting some corners here, not connecting the vertices, just to save some time and to show you how you can build on top of these prisms with more prisms and create something that's looking kind of interesting. You might have, let's see, you always remember these intersecting points from the lines receding back from the vanishing points. These intersections are where new vertices are created. So I'm going to determine, so I created this one. I'm going to determine this far back is where I want the next one to be. And now I'm going to pass this one through here. 2 more we've created. Now I can determine the height. And let's see, I'm going to carry this back here. This is going to go up here. And then, you know, let's put a roof right here, center. So actually, you can see that was a good example here. I drew the center line before I centered off the face. This is really good to show you. And it was off. It was slightly off because it's not going to be perfectly down the center of what I see. It's going to be the center of what adheres to the center that we find. It's going to be slightly to the right of the face. It's not right in the middle because this entire face is receding back to this vanishing point. So it's going to be off slightly. So draw through it. Maybe it's a really tall kind of roof. Find your new vertex you made and connect these 2 vertices to that one. And now you can see even this triangular face, this half is smaller than this half because the halfway mark was closer to the right. And again, because it's 2-point, parallel, and you're going to use this vanishing point to connect to make the roof. See, if you use this one, it wouldn't look right. You can see the angle is just not right. So that's another thing too. If you get confused and you're trying both vanishing points, you will see quickly. And the better your eye is trained to see this, the faster you'll be able to make those decisions. You'll be able to see it without even drawing the lines. So you'll know what's going to look right. And again, let's say the light source is over here. Got a sun over here in the sky. This entire side would be shaded, shadowed. You wouldn't see it. So everything on this side is going to be shadowed in. Even partly here because the house is now the shadow would continue across on the ground here. Just to give you an idea, very basic idea of the light play, how light comes into play and how it creates shadows. Okay, cool. So this is, again, basic perspective tips using 1-point and 2-point to build prisms, and prisms with varying sided or edged faces. Triangular prisms and totally erratic shapes built out of faces that are still geometrically sound, but nothing really recognizable that we see every day. This is almost like some kind of abstract art piece you might find in a town square or something like that, maybe in a museum. All right, friends, I hope you enjoyed this video. I will continue the next video with 3-point perspective. I think I'm going to do that because then we can start building scenes, like an urban scene, bedroom scene, any location really, even outdoors. A natural landscape scene, you can see how perspective applies even to that, and not always rigid straight lines like we'd see in cities or in the rooms in houses. All right, so yeah, if you got anything out of this video, I hope you did. And if you enjoy this content, consider subscribing and leave me your feedback. I welcome any and all comments. I'm always happy to hear what you have to say, and tell me how it's going with your work. All right, friends, you guys have a great one, and I will catch you in the next video. Take care.